What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Martinez, and you are plugged into the Social Plug Podcast, where we connect you to level up and where we discuss ordinary people doing extraordinary things. We are always powered by Social Plug Media. Today, we are on Collab Space Studios, the beautiful studio where you can create your own content and your own podcast. So I have the pleasure and honor of being with this panel today. I got some returnees, some VIPs. I got Rachel Frederick and Amanda Hunt, and I got Chris Willis, and I got Jeremy Baggett. So I'm gonna let you guys lead off with your intros. River City Advocacy is a great pillar in the community that helps not only veterans, but people with mental health resources and help and support. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Well, yeah, for those who are not familiar with River City Advocacy, we've been around since 2000, basically serving the community here in New Braunfels, Comal County, surrounding counties, providing counseling and peer support groups for people that otherwise might not be able to afford it, because as we know, even with insurance, copays can be $90 and up per session, and that's just not feasible. And mental health should be accessible for all. So that's really what our primary focus is. And then we also have now really started being strategic in the community and partnering with other nonprofits to increase our reach for mental health support by providing those roles with our development person, Rachel. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we are strategically looking to partner with other nonprofits. Recovery Works is one of our partners, SJRC is one of our partners, Connections, and then we're serving seniors over at Eden Heights Community, which is a National Church Residences organization that provides affordable housing for seniors. So we have really moved this year in efforts to connect and reach even more people who could otherwise not get to us due to transportation or logistical reasons. So that's something that we're very proud of. The other thing that we have always focused on, but something we're going to be talking about here today, is our effort to serve veterans. We serve veterans at no charge, and we also serve their family members as well. And one of the things that I think is important for folks to know is that we don't have a dedicated funding source for our veterans counseling program. And so all of our support comes from the events and fundraising that we do during those events and individual donors. And so we, in advance of this podcast, just want to say thank you so much for the support that the community has given us and our ability to serve those who have served us. Thank you.
Hey, I want to say thank you to you guys. You guys are always out in the community serving not only us, but families and veterans, and now you're teaming up with SJRC to help little ones, people that are in school, like school-age children. I mean, how cool is that? Because we don't have a lot of those resources. And here you guys are able to have the vision and insight to understand, hey, these people need help too. They're going through some things. Because growing up as a child, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of those things. I mean, I would get spanked if I was out of line or whatever, but maybe I needed some help back in the day.
Well,
you know?
It's funny you say that. And, like she just mentioned with veterans.
Right.
So my grandfather, veterans have a special place in my heart, because my grandfather, who I love and adore, even though he's passed on, I still love and adore, and I read his books all the time about his service and when he was in World War II. And he could not come out and say, I need help. It was, I'm feeling melancholy today. So, or my grandmother would come down the stairs and be like, your grandfather's gonna stay in his room today. He's feeling melancholy. We didn't call it depression. We didn't call it PTSD. We just called it melancholy back then, because it was kind of a stigma that, you don't ask for help.
Right.
And especially being military, he was like, no, just he'd be in his room for a couple days, and then he would come out, and we would go back to working at the ranch and working on the farm. So it really is a special place in my heart to make sure that our veterans are taken care of. I know we have the VA, and I know we have good resources there, but unfortunately they're overwhelmed.
Right.
So at River City Advocacy, what we can do is we can take those veterans and give them a place where they feel comfortable, where they feel like they can talk, where they know that there's not anybody watching or writing down on a sheet of paper things and passing it to somebody else or throwing a script at them if they don't need it. So we are very, very proud of our veterans that come in to River City Advocacy and get the help that they need for them and their families.
There's two entities that don't usually know they need help or don't announce it: kids and the American veteran. All right, the American military veteran. And me being a veteran myself, I had a lot of stress and burdens and just monkey on my back all the time because I had to lead and I was in a position of leadership where I had to be the voice and I had to be the even keel for everybody. And if I looked weak or if I looked out of sorts, then the mission would kind of falter a little bit. So they were looking at me for guidance and the strength and stability. But really, in my mind, I was like, man, I need to talk to somebody because I had a lot of burdens and weight on me constantly. But let me give some advice to any veterans out there that are going through something. Go seek out some help. Be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's advantageous to you to be vulnerable because it can change the trajectory of your entire life and change your team and change everybody that comes after you. So we have these two veterans here. You guys are combat veterans, all right? Army veterans, badasses, all right? I said that earlier, and you're like, I'm not a badass. No, you are. Because let's put this into perspective. Less than 1% of the American population serves. And even today, it's even more challenging for these recruiters to get people to serve. So you guys not only served, but you served honorably and you served well. And you guys made a distinct impact against our enemies and for our advocates. And you guys kind of paid the price a little bit with your mental health. I know you guys, you're both marksmen. You guys both were in combat, and we all talked a little bit about what you went through. We're kind of talking about our war stories a little bit, so to speak, on how our bodies took a toll, how our minds took a toll, how our families took a toll with our service. But especially you two guys, Chris Willis and Jeremy Baggett, we truly don't understand what you went through as veterans because you put your life on the line. When you sign that dotted line, so to speak, you go out there and you defend the country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But what we really don't see on that dotted line is all these extra things that take place in our minds and our bodies. We're broken. And I'll let you guys kind of introduce yourself and tell us the rest of the story.
Jeremy, you want to go first or me?
Go ahead, man. I'll follow you.
Christopher Willis, airborne infantry. I was a mortarman, designated marksman, worked the FDC. I did a lot of everything in my unit. Served overseas, was injured and left the military. Now I run a nonprofit with several other amazing people. I partner with River City Advocacy Center here in New Braunfels to bring resources into the community to help veterans and their families, their spouses. I also work in the community as a public official.
So you're still serving. All you know is service, Chris.
That's it. That's all I know. If I'm not serving somebody, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I have a heart of a servant leader. I can't do anything for myself. It feels greedy. Yeah.
And where did you learn that from?
My father, my mother, they're both veterans. My brother's a veteran. My dad, just every time somebody would call up, he was there for them. It didn't matter, 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning. My mom, even today, she's retired, and we get text messages that she's volunteering at a school that she has no children or grandchildren, or she's volunteering at the community garden or the visitor center or something like that, just so she can help people or fill in a gap where she sees needed.
So that's their legacy, and it kind of, like I said earlier, you had the keys to the family now. When legacy starts with the certain foundation, people usually follow, and you followed the service, and you're providing more service. City council, I mean, that's a pretty big deal because you're making decisions for the entire community.
I'm making decisions that affect, I think the number's up to 117,000 people. My district's about 15 last counted. But I do it because I want to be a voice, and I want to put myself in a position because where I'm uncomfortable to better myself, but also where people can't put themselves in that position. Going and standing in front of the podium, in front of our dais, and asking or even just speaking in front of can be intimidating. I'm very easily approachable. I have events that are away from the dais where I dress casual like this and just say, hey, talk to me. I mean, I'm a resident just like you. I just happen to have quite a bit more responsibility.
Right.
So I even show my daughters. I have a 6 and a 10-year-old. Who puts the flags out before Veterans Day? Well, it's an organization. We're going to go help them today. Or who cleans up the river? It's an organization. We're going to go help them today. These things don't happen on their own. And that's what you need to do to better the city, to better your community. If you take everything for granted and it's like, somebody else will do it, sooner or later, no one will. So I try to teach them, be that person. Even in the military, school, my family, if somebody calls or I see something's needed, I don't even ask. I just go do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, servant leader.
Yeah. And the military helped you with that as well.
Oh, yeah. Whenever, like we were talking earlier, whenever the Cab Scouts were down a driver or an individual, they would be like, Willis, come on. Because they knew I would go do it. It didn't matter if I was in the FTC for 12 hours or if I had already done a rotation or gone out before. They knew that I wouldn't put up a fight or whine or complain.
Right.
Just, okay, that's my job. Let's go get it done.
Get shit done, man.
That's it. Tip of the spear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So, Jeremy, tell us about you, man. I know you got a story as well, a compelling story.
So I was airborne infantry as well. I initially came in the 90s. Dating myself a little bit.
Hey, 90s was the best era,
right,
man,
that's when
for
it was-
music,
that's when it was
movies,
happening.
everything else. So,
So I was in from 96 to 99. And then I got out and was going to college. And then 9/11 hit. And so I withdrew from school, re-enlisted in the Army on September 12th, left on September 19th.
next day.
And
well,
kind of got back into it. Felt like, it was my duty as, an American and as a young guy, right, that still young and, strong and
Yeah.
all that fun stuff.
Hey, you're still strong, aren't you?
I'm not, I don't know
I
about
mean,
all
you
that.
look look like you work out. I mean,
That's debatable, right?
that's who you ask.
But so then I was one of the guys that parachuted into Iraq during the invasion. I was a sniper reconnaissance team leader during the invasion, which was kind of crazy. I mean, it was a wild time. I'm sure you can imagine. And so went over there and did some of that stuff. Ended up getting hurt. I guess kind of zigged when I should have zagged. And ended up coming back a little bit early. Luckily or thankfully, I didn't need any type of immediate emergency type surgery stuff. Some of the guys that were with me when we got hurt did. So they kind of sent me back to home station. But it was kind of weird because this was kind of the initial days
Right.
of, the war and kind of working through the logistic parts of moving things in and moving things out. So I actually stayed in a field hospital for a month after I got hurt because they're like, hey, we got you manifested for, tonight, we're going to, get you rolled out. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And
Was there a lot of ice cream? Remember that on Forrest Gump?
unfortunately, no, because it's
You know what I'm
initial
talking about,
days
right?
of the war.
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, so,
yeah.
So I mean, I lived out of my rucksack for 9 months,
Okay.
right? Because there were no bases there, there were no anything, right? So we were kind of the first guys, moving down, and so we ended up were the guys that took over the airfield in Kirkuk, and we took it over, and there were still 88 guns loaded, and so we had to go clear the perimeter of this airfield. I mean, it was all kind of figuring stuff out. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously made a lot of mistakes because hadn't kind of been in this stuff for a while. So there weren't that many kind of lessons learned or TTPs off of, how to do this or how to do that. And I actually had a guy have a AD with an anti-aircraft gun as we were trying to unload it.
Right.
As we're clearing the airfield. And so
Yeah.
we're like, hey, no, that was us. That was an accident. Sorry. We're like, we don't know how this thing works. because we get in there, we're like, hey, it's a gun, I can clear it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, obviously not.
Well, it was clear,
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
the right way.
But so, like I said, ended up being there a month because you're like, hey, you're manifested for tonight, and then some guys would get hurt, right? That needed, evacuation, that were, urgent surgical, and they're like, hey, dude, you're bumped. Hey, yep, no problem, I get it, right? So I ended up, staying there in a field hospital for about a month before, I got brought back to home station. Got there, recovered. And then I got selected to be a sniper instructor for the Army. So then they PCS'd me to Fort Benning. I was a sniper instructor there for a while, for a few years. While I was there, I got selected, myself and one other instructor, to go back to Iraq to work with the Asymmetric Warfare Group and Center for Army Lessons Learned, doing some counter sniper stuff. And then also because kind of sniper activity started kicking up. So they pulled me and another guy. We went over there and did some, like I said, some counter sniper stuff and worked on some counter sniper kind of TTPs to kind of, distribute through the multi-coalition corps, Iraq, and then
Let me ask you some questions about snipers real quick.
Yeah.
Snipers to me, because I watch all these movies. I've never been in combat, all right? But I watch these movies, Full Metal Jacket, and there's these others where a sniper can derail an entire mission. One enemy sniper. So you talked about counter snipers,
right.
which is taking out that sniper. So how crucial is sniper, in your own words, how crucial is being a sniper and a sniper instructor to teach others on how to be an expert sniper? How crucial is that?
I mean, so for us, our kind of thing was like the best weapon you have is between your ears, right? So a lot of times people think that being a sniper is just pulling the trigger. That's really the easiest part. It's a lot of it is collecting information, right? Because you're out there and you're watching what's going on with your guys, you're watching what's going on with other people, and so a lot of it. I mean, like I said, when I say the easy part, I mean that's the least technically difficult.
Because there's a lot of intel. You got to
right?
collect
so it's
intel.
a lot of collecting intelligence, right? And it's figuring out what's the pattern of this area, right? And so in order to do that, you have to kind of sit there and you have to watch and you see,
Analyze.
and you analyze like what's normal, right? Like is this traffic normal, right? Are these people walking around this building, is that normal for this area or is that unusual for this area, right? And so a lot of times, they would send us in, a few days before they were going to do a raid on a village or something. And really a lot of what we were doing is just collecting battlefield information, right? And sending it back, but not analyzing it. So your job is not to analyze that. Your job is to not say what that means, right? They have other people that are analysts. They have other people that do that, right? So all I'm doing is telling you, this is what I see. I see this, I see that, I see this, right? And I'm not tainting it really either way because again, they have people that do that all they're doing is they're just taking in this stuff and they're, interpreting it because they're not just getting information from my point of view, right? They're getting information from my point of view, from this guy's point of view, from human intelligence, they're getting other places and they're integrating all of those pieces.
Right. They're surveying the entire law of the land.
Right. And so there's times where, right, like so you have the rules of engagement, right, on when you can shoot somebody, when you can't shoot somebody, right? Obviously, if you're engaged, absolutely. And so there's a lot of times where you're like, should I take this shot? Should I not take this shot? Because as a sniper that's supporting an infantry unit, you're not the main effort, right? I am supporting the main effort, right? And so the main effort is those line guys, right, that are going into that village or that are going into that block of the city, or whatever. And so my job is to support them and to make them successful and to try to protect them.
Because they get ambushed and there's all kinds of enemy fire coming from every angle.
Right, and so like I could be 100% totally justified, right, and taking the shot. However, what does that do to what we're supposed to be doing there, right? Is that, like, are you just there trying to get a body count, or are you there trying to make sure that what y'all are supposed to be doing as an organization, right, is what you're doing?
But you're also on a perch, so you have a bird's eye view of some
Right.
stuff as well.
Right. So, and that's the biggest thing is like I said, is collecting information and watching, right? So, a big thing, right, of sniper school, of sniper operations, right, is observing and watching, right? It's so like when people go to sniper school, a lot of people fail sniper school not for shooting. They fail it for observation things,
Right.
and they fail it for range estimation stuff, and they fail it for other things. So shooting is not necessary. Where in the movies, right, that's the piece that you see, and that's what gets all the glam, and that's what's
That's the
sexy,
quarterback,
and,
right?
Filing your finger down and all
Right,
that craziness, which is
Who was
Crazy.
the famous sniper that made the movie? Chris Kyle.
right. And so those are the sexy movie type parts, but
Right.
that's not the bulk,
Right.
right, of what you're doing.
I just wanted to give the audience analysis or perspective
Right.
on snipers, because we see them all the time.
Right.
And recently we had some sniper talk in the news. I won't get into that, but we need to know
Right.
what snipers do. So yeah, man, both of you. So you make decisions, not only now, but back then, stressful decisions that were vital to an entire mission and to the country and the world. If you put it into perspective, you guys made worldwide decisions. All that would happen on the battlefield or happen in a small town somewhere in Fallujah or Syria somewhere, but it had worldwide impact. And you guys think about that all the time, I'm sure. So that's stressful, and it's a big weight on your shoulders. So you had these high-profile enemies that you were, after, and all these, and that played a big part in your mental health, not only then but today, because I'm sure you still think about that kind of stuff. It weighs on you. That's part of your decision-making process today. So, Chris, we talked about it. Veterans, we have our head on a swivel, right? And not to put you on the spot, but you wanted to make sure the doors were in an area where you can see who's coming in and out, because that's what you did in the military, and it stuck with you. It's part of your mental state.
You try to not to go into a room that only has one exit.
Yeah. And you know where you can escape and things like that. I do that all the time, whether I go to the local gym or wherever. Hey, how can I escape out of here? And who the hell's in here?
Oh,
I want to make sure I know if there's somebody looking suspicious or whatever, because that's what the military taught us. Always keep your head on a swivel.
Right, and I think kind of a follow-up to that is one of the things that we were having that conversation before we started, right, is he was like, the only reason I'm as comfortable as I am now, right, is because I talked to y'all before we had this podcast, right? And so he's like, I trust that should something happen, right, that after just talking to y'all for a few minutes and, sharing some, shared experiences and whatnot, that, I trust that if something happened, I wouldn't be alone.
Well,
So
Right.
you even trust an
And
Air
so-
Force guy?
Well, that's why you're on the edge.
Maybe.
That's why you're on the edge of the table, right?
Well, I'm keeping track of this door over here.
you're going to
See?
go get transportation for us.
Right. And so the thing is whenever we look back, right, at our time, or at least for me, I don't mean to speak for you,
Cool.
is when we look back at our time and we look back at a lot of those situations that we were in, right, that were very stressful, that were dangerous, we knew that we could trust the guy to the left of us and to the right of us, right? Because we had trained together, we'd been through that stuff together.
They're competent at their job.
And so a lot of
To your
times
right, Chris.
I don't feel like I'm the only one that's looking, right? I don't feel that I'm the only one that can,
Right.
respond to this,
Right.
And so I think that kind of adds to probably what we're getting to in a bit is things that, kind of cause us to have some things is to where a lot of times we feel like now that we're not surrounded by those people all the time, right? That, am I the only one that's going to be able to respond to this? Am I the only one that sees that,
Right.
right? Versus before, right, you knew, right, that because you'd trained with these guys, you'd worked with these guys, you were in these situations with these guys, that a lot of times when you saw it, one of them already saw it, right? And you look at them and they're like, Yeah, I got it. Right? And then so you see him and he tells you, I got it. I can shift my focus to something else.
Yep.
And that's an extra layer of daily stress.
Right.
Sure.
It is. I mean, it's
Hypervigilance.
just, it's the truth, whether we think about that or not. It's just an extra layer.
Yeah, and add stress, even more stress to that in a sense. I've been with my wife for 20 years, and it just becomes second nature now whenever we go into a restaurant or even a library or something like that. She waits until I find my most comfortable spot, and then she picks her spot, right? Because she knows I'm comfortable watching over my family and making sure that the threats are taken care of, right? And I will move forward on it. At the airport, I am BSE, man. I am not a good person.
You're stressed the heck out at the airport, man.
I'm checking hands, faces, conversations. I'm listening. Some people, when you see them running to a gate or something like that, are like, what are they running to? What are they running from?
They're about to miss their plane, sir.
Yeah, well, I don't know that. So man, I tell you what, my wife and I have certain like sayings. I'm red lighting right now, honey. I'm red lighting, and she leans up on me and puts that pressure on me, like I got you back, like we're stacked or something like that, and it calms me down in a bit. Going to what we're going to be talking about later, it reverts back to my counseling and my training through counseling. Mindfulness, be here, don't be there, right? What's the smell in the air? What's the people around you? What's the clothing on the feel on your skin? Just be omnipresent, right? And it used to take me an hour plus to get back, and it is rough for everybody, even my wife. I mean, she probably has PTSD seeing the shit that I've gone and put her through, right? But with training and with counseling, and just and this is years. This isn't something that happens 1 or 2 sessions. It takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to really get back to normal. I have a service dog. If she's around, it may not even happen. I just focus on her, petting her. I know where every bump, every scar, every missing chunk of hair is on her because I'm being mindful of her right now, and she's looking at me. And I never was with a dog when I was overseas, so I know this is here and now, and I focus on that, and it grounds me. It tethers me to this part of the world. So with her around, it's pretty awesome what dogs can do. I used to be the person that said, I don't want to be the dude with the dog, right? I don't want to enter the room, nothing like that. My oldest was born when my wife was pregnant and about to have my oldest. We went to the hospital and I left Maggie at home. I don't need her to get in the way. This is about my wife. This is about making sure that her health and safety is taken care of. I'll take care of it, right? I'm carrying the bags. I'm doing everything. Just focus on her. She has Piper, my oldest, and she looks over at me in the middle of the night. She goes, have you slept? And no, I'm good. How long have you been up? Oh, 40 hours. I'm good. I'm rocking. She goes, no, honey, they got me. I'm fine. I'm taken care of. Go get Maggie and come back, right? I'm like, okay. I go get Maggie. I come back. She lays on top of me, well in between my legs, and she's looking up at me. So if I have night terrors or something like that, she wakes me up. So I'm not flailing, hitting my wife, or what have you. And a nurse comes in and sees Maggie and startles her, which startles me. And then you go through that whole loop. So counseling and even service dogs, there's a stigma. And we're grunts, we're hard chargers, tip of the spear. I mean, if you hurt, you drive on with a, never mind.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You drive on, right? If they drop their ruck, you pick it up, and you tell them, I got your back. When you're ready, I'll give you your ruck back on you, and you don't fault them for it, right? a dog or PTSD or something like that in the 90s, and in some circles, it's a injury or you're defective, right? And you're not equal to me, so you need to be cast aside. Just sleep on it, come back later, right? And it's not that. And when I got out, I drank a lot, I fought a lot, and that was my getting my aggression out. That was me dealing with that injury. And then I moved to Texas. And somebody told me in very colorful words, you're messed in the head. You need to go see somebody. And that hurt because I used to protect people. I had people around me. I never failed at anything, never failed at a mission, never failed at training, a task, nothing. And now I'm less than this guy? Really? So I talked to my father, who is also a veteran, and he encouraged me to go see a VA doctor. And I did, and I didn't feel comfortable telling my story. I didn't feel comfortable, like, who the hell are you? You're a doctor. You didn't go through this. You didn't do any of this. And I didn't really go back for many years. Met my wife, had somewhat of a career, had a mental breakdown, and I wasn't ever an inpatient. But that was when I hit rock bottom, and I hit it for my wife. And it's like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. She's like, where the hell are you? Call me on a cell phone. I'm like, I'm taking care of it. Always hiding it, always not showing my complete self. And then my counselor put me in for CMP, for a disability, for PTSD and what have you. And again, I didn't say anything. Got 10% or whatnot. As I was going through counseling, I realized I'm not less of a person. This is what happened to me, and this is my body's reaction to it. I can't just say it's done, it's over, right? But I can say that I can fix it, not completely, because there are times where a balloon pops or a door crashes, or I had one incident where the vehicle in front of me, the engine blew up on I-35. Oil went all over my windshield. My tunnel vision went, and next thing I know, I'm in New Braunfels. And those things are going to happen, but you can learn your triggers. You can better yourself. And then I went back and did another CMP, and I told them everything. It was, other than being overseas, it was the worst, most horrible, absolutely crappy feeling while telling them. I mean, I was crying. I was bawling my eyes out. I didn't have Maggie at the time. I have had her for 10 years now, but bawling my eyes out, just a blubbering fool. And then when I got out and I got home, I told my wife, I'm already feeling this way. Let's just tell her, get over it. If she's gonna leave me, she's gonna leave me. And she hugged me and thanked me for telling her. And we moved on. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, what's for dinner, right? Mm-hmm. She goes, okay. And then 20 years we've been together. So having PTSD is not, you're not damaged. You're injured and your body reacted to that situation. If a bullet goes through your leg, your body's going to react. You're going to have a pain reaction to it. If you lose a limb, your body's going to react to that. And it's up to you on how you move forward. Are you going to be the person that lost their arm? Are you going to be the person that is dealing with intruding memories? Or are you going to be the guy that completes that mission and does what he can to be the best that he can? And that's where I'm at 15, 16 years later, is every task, I go into a room where I know people are going to yell at me and get in my face and whatnot, because what I do as public servant, I go through a routine. I've done these things. I survived them. I can survive this. This is your mission. Accomplish it and move on. And that's how I treat everything.
Chris, how vulnerable and powerful is what you just told us? It's incredible. Because it took, what you're saying is, you had all this wound up in you, and you were keeping it private from your wife, your most cherished asset. And she knew you're going through some stuff. She just didn't come out and tell you. But you being vulnerable, and not only to her, but to us as well, I mean, because hopefully this segment in this podcast will help others. That's what we want to do, is we want to be vulnerable in our positions of leadership and power, to say it's okay, no matter who you are and what position you're in. Everybody's going through some stuff. And what you just said, my friend, is very, very powerful. And I can't wait to hear your story as well. But your wife is a hero as well, because she put up with this kind of stuff. And how many wives or how many spouses out there who have somebody who's going through it, whether it be a child or a mother or a father, whoever, especially a spouse, they can easily say, I'm done here. I'm out. I don't want no part of this. This is just wrecking my future, because I don't want to be babysitting this person. But she stuck with you. And that shows me, I don't even know your wife, that she loves you and she supports you. And how much better did that make you, and makes you better today as well? Just the resiliency that she has as well, because it's not all about you. It's about her and your family as well. And she stuck with you.
She heard about an organization called Service Dog Express in San Antonio, and I was driving to work, and she called me just before I got out of my truck, and she goes, hey, I heard this thing, this place. I'm going to send you a text when you get off work. Call them. And I was like, what is it all about? She's like, it's about service dogs. I was like, man, I don't want to be a guy with a dog.
Yeah.
And she goes, just call them, see what they can do. And they explained the whole process and what have you. And I tell you what, it sped up my recovery easily. Not a question, it sped up my recovery.
You're a guy with a dog.
I'm the guy with the dog.
You are a recovering guy with a dog who's much better. And now you have a new loved one, Maggie.
Yep.
And she's probably your everything, I'm sure.
She is. I can't sleep if I don't know she's in the room. Because I mean, there have been times where I took a trip to the VA is a great organization that does a lot of good stuff, but everybody has their own experience with the VA. And San Antonio wasn't doing it for me. So I was flying to Wichita, Kansas, and I was taking Maggie with me. And by the way, there are certain airlines that treat service dogs like royalty, better than me.
So she's in first class, and you're over here in the back seat.
Right.
They got him in the cargo hold.
Yeah.
And I was at a hotel, and I was sleeping, trying to take a nap before my counseling appointment, my med provider appointment. And some people were walking by and doing some maintenance work outside, and she lost her crap. She started barking and growling and snarling and nudging me and waking me up to let me know that there is danger nearby. And I woke up, I pet her, and I said, okay, I got it. And then she went back down. She is the most calm, chilled out dog you will ever meet. She almost didn't pass her service dog certification through the organization because she wouldn't jump up into the vehicle. She just kind of looks up at me like, hey, you gonna get this? And when I showed them that I do have back pain and I have, knee pain and stuff like that, but I'm capable of doing that for her, that's not an issue for me. And they said, okay, as long as you're okay with it. And so they passed her after, some persuasion.
Yeah. That's an incredible story.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. I wish and again, everybody's experiences are different. I see a service dog as a crutch. If you hurt your leg and while it's healing, you use crutches, right?
Right.
And then as your leg heals, you no longer need those crutches. They're there in case you need it, in case something else happens. And I do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more without Maggie. So I don't have that crutch for the rest of my life. I'm healing, I'm getting better. So I don't have her here today. But I wish I brought her now.
Yeah. Man, I want to meet Maggie.
I know.
And like my wife says, that's because we have two Aussie Doodles. She goes, they're not dogs, they're our babies. So I can't call my little ones dogs. So I don't know how it is for you. Is Maggie a dog or is she your baby?
She's a fur baby.
Fur baby, okay.
Yeah, she's the oldest sister. And her service dog vest is made out of my old uniform.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's so cool.
Okay. So Jeremy?
Tell us about Clyde.
So I second so I have a service dog as well.
Okay.
So I definitely understand the maybe the anxiety, right, of having a service dog, because you don't want to seem weak,
Right.
right, and you don't want to again be seen as the guy with the dog, right, like you can't walk out in public without a dog, really, dude. And so I think it's especially difficult for guys that were in, I mean, because we all serve, right? And we all, do our parts. But I think the mental hurdle to get over for guys that were in the infantry, guys that were, in other special places, right? To have a dog, it's a mental hurdle to get over. And so I've had a couple breaking points to where, because like I said, I was wounded. I've had over 35 surgeries. I was in a wheelchair for a while. I was in a walker for a while. Luckily for me, whenever I was going through my recovery stuff, I was here at Fort Sam Houston, was able to do some stuff at the Center for the Intrepid. Also got in on some experimental medical procedures and different things that was really just trials of some doctor saying, hey, I've got an idea. I think this might work for something. Yeah. And so I was kind of lucky enough to get in on some of those things. And so you go from being, this guy that, does all these hard things and these tough things. And so like I was the guy that when I wanted to do something in the military, I did it, right? Like I went to all these tough schools and all these things, and I was an honor graduate at Jumpmaster School. I was an honor graduate at Pathfinder School. I was distinguished military graduate at Officer Candidate School, and all of these things, right? And sniper shaker, and this big, tough guy, right? And then, or at least I thought, kind of in my head, right? Oh, I'm this big, I'm like, they should make movies about me. I'm amazing, right? And you kind of go from that to getting hurt and like I can't push my daughter on the swing. Right, and then
You're good.
You got your brother. You can do it.
so then how do you process that, right? Like how do you go from doing all these things, right, and fighting for your country and big bad, whatever, to now I can't, go to my son's soccer game, right? I can't, do these things. Right, and that's difficult, right?
Oh.
And so I started drinking like heavily, right, which obviously took a toll, on my marriage at the time. And so, that, trying to mask, those things, and then you don't talk about it, right, because you don't want to show that weakness. Right, and so.
Yeah, it's tough. Like you said, and we talked before the show, being in this position of leadership, you never want to show any kind of weakness or that you don't have things under control.
Right.
Because you want to be that guy that has all the answers, that has all the guidance, and can motivate everybody. You're the leader.
Right.
And if you go to mental health counseling or show any kind of weakness, they're going to look down on you. And in the military, we all had kind of an ego a little bit. I know I did. And we are amped up and we are, every day we're hard chargers and we want to make sure we got everything under control, even at the house. Right. Sometimes my wife would tell me, "Hey, I'm not part of your military team here. I'm your wife. You need to make sure that you understand that you got to differentiate the two." So, and she still gets on my case today. Sometimes she goes, "Hey, let's focus." Right? And I'm like, "Okay." You know.
I knife hand my kids
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
now and then.
The knife hand.
And so, like he was saying earlier, like different people's experiences at the VA are different, right? And so, so when I go to, I only had 2, mental health appointments at the VA, and neither one of them went well. So, the psychologists that they sent me to, they basically had a list of questions, like, "Have you ever seen a dead body?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen that?" I'm like, "Yep, yep, yep, yep." A couple times.
A whole bunch of
and
yeses on that list.
There was no no's on the list,
Right.
right? And I don't know if I was the first person they'd ever talked to before. And so they were kind of taken aback. And they're like, "Can you tell me a little bit about your service?" I'm like, "Well, I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that." And they were like, "Okay, I think we're done here." I was like, "And you're 75% for PTSD. Thank you for coming." And I'm like, that's it? Really? Like, we're not going to do anything? Like,
Talk it out.
There's no follow-ups or any kind of resources after.
and so I was very blessed I actually I went to inpatient. I was very blessed to go to Warrior's Heart out in Bandera. It's an inpatient program for military and first responders that have PTSD and some type of addiction, whether it be, alcohol or, drugs or whatnot. And so I did an inpatient program there. And they, doing that, they're like, "You're not technically, an alcoholic, but you definitely abuse the hell out of it." And I'm like, all right, that's, that's fair. I think, that's fair. And so, did an inpatient program there. And they have a very good program there. I mean, I would recommend it to anybody that is struggling. And they have a canine program there. And so part of my recovery, right, and part of my treatment there was actually training my dog. And so they have, a kennel there. They have a kennel master she's amazing. And they basically have rescue dogs from around the area, and then people also donate dogs. And they get evaluated by their kennel master to see, does this dog have the, intelligence, proficiency, type stuff to take to this. And then
And what's your fur baby's name?
Clyde.
Clyde.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he's half black-mouthed cur and half coonhound. He's about 110 pounds
Okay.
of love.
So coonhound, those guys got a good sense of smell.
Yeah, he is, and so kind of what they do there, which is really amazing, is so they have a kennel and a kennel master, and you kind of go down and see if you just kind of click with any of the dogs that are there, right?
Bond.
And see if you kind of have that bond. And it was kind of weird. So Clyde had been there for about 9 months, I think, before I got there, and he just wouldn't listen to anybody. Like, nobody could control him. He says, hunters, and so, and I don't know if you do this, but, coonhounds can climb trees. They can also climb fences.
So everybody here has met Clyde.
Yes.
Because they're all
Not
all
yet.
laughing.
Well, and so they can climb fences. And so they ended up having to put, a roof on his kennel because he would climb it and just walk across the tops of all the kennels.
Of course,
there.
that's the dog you pick.
And so, nobody could get him to listen. Nobody could get him to behave. And then he and I just hit it off.
Because you guys were the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both are. Yeah. Bro, I'm not listening to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. And if you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so he and I just hit it off. And so part of, the process was training him and working with him and kind of teaching him to, know me and listen to me. And so like now he reads me
Yep.
like he can tell if I'm happy. He can tell if we're out somewhere and something happens and my anxiety goes up, he can sense it. It's like he can smell it
Really?
on me. And like there'll be times where he'll come up and he'll just like push himself against me. He won't do anything. He'll just come over and push himself against me, or throw his hand on me, or be like, "Hey, give me attention," to kind of distract me from things.
Yeah.
And so he's my buddy. I mean, he and I go everywhere together. I just actually had to change out the filter in my truck because he's always in there because it's got all the dog hair in there. And
So Jeremy, so in your house, who rules the roost? You or Clyde?
I do. So
You do.
Clyde, well, and for the longest time, I was the only one he would listen to.
Okay.
So my daughters would be like trying to tell him something. He'd just be looking at me like, "Can you believe this?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Do you hear them talking to me like that?" He's like, "You're gonna let that happen?" Right.
Man.
But so now he's part of the family, and he's their little brother.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Hey, make sure your little brothers." Although he's 110-pound dog.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even coming back, once I left there, I still had the anxiety of taking him out in public, like to be seen as that guy with the dog, right? And again, that was nothing to do with Clyde. That was my thing, right? That was
just your
hurdle,
mental
my
blockage.
mental blockage,
Right.
And so
It was part of that thing that we've been keep talking about is what are people going to think about me?
right.
Stigma.
Yeah, and it's okay.
And actually part of like that has helped me being like, you know what? I really don't give a whatever
Beep.
what anybody thinks of me anymore. I'm just gonna do me, right? And,
Heck yeah.
And that comes across different ways to different people, right? And so I'm kind of one of those personalities where people that really don't like me, or they're like, he's an all right guy,
Yeah.
right? And I'm okay with that. And so, as long as, and kind of like, he was talking, with his girls and, so I have 3 littles, although they're, not that little anymore. I'm actually a grandfather now.
Oh.
So my littles, aren't that little anymore, but, to us, they'll always be little.
Yeah.
And so, making sure that, to kind of have that connection with them and unfortunately, they know that Dad has, gone through some things and they can actually read me too, right? To where they can tell if, my anxiety's up. Like my daughter will come and, put her hand on my shoulder or, Dad, are you okay? And I'm like,
So you have service people too?
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I got the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah. I have a service person, my wife. She always tells me to calm the hell down.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes. And I got J-Rock, our producer here on the podcast, tells me, dude, chill out. And I'm like, okay. So I got 2 service people.
You're at a 10. Bring it down to a 2.
Yeah.
Wow, I think
Usually-
I've heard that somewhere before.
Usually I operate on a high intensity level. Usually I'm an intense person sometimes, and I realize I'm like, dude, I need to chill out. So in my head I'm like, chill out a little bit, But yeah, I mean, your stories are incredible, remarkable. It's courageous to come on here and be vulnerable to these kind of things, and whether you know it or not, you're helping people just by giving your story and your personal testimony, because a lot of veterans don't want to open up, and I commend you and I tip my hat to you 100 times about that. But let's think about this. Let's put this into perspective. How many of our military teammates still have that stigma and that mentality that I'm not going to come out and tell anybody? And how crucial is that to their current mindset? They're probably crying out for help, because I know some people that, dude, I'm good. I don't want to go to no doctor or have anybody diagnose me. Just like you said earlier, who are they? They don't know my story. They don't know anything about me. They're just some dude that got a degree. No, but there is a lot of expertise, and they're trained professionals on how to uncover these things. So there's a lot of military people that are currently in and that have served before, that are retired now or just got out, that are going through some stuff, and they don't understand the power of counseling and resources like River City Advocacy, who've helped thousands of people with free resources. It's counseling that helps them. It can only help them and change their entire life.
Well, I mean, we've said it multiple times. The you have different experiences with the VA, and that causes some veterans to not. Oh, I reached out and nothing happened. They didn't care, right? Well, that's not your only resource. There are organizations like River City Advocacy Center that have programs not just for the veteran. When you have your anger outbursts, or you have your bad days, or you have a flashback or what have you, you have a trigger, right? If your loved ones are nearby, they're going to be affected from seeing that, from dealing with that, and what have you. So River City Advocacy and blah, 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 blah. River City Advocacy Center has programs for spouses and loved ones as well, because we can't forget them, right?
Because they're going through it just as you are.
Sure.
Right. So, I mean, I know going through, a lot of the things that, I was going through at the time was detrimental, right, to my marriage. Because I was married for 20 years before, and things just kind of spiraled, and, a little bit here, a little bit there, a lot here, different stuff. And so, and I think a lot of times, spouses can kind of be in the same boat of, I'm assuming here, right, of placing stigma, right, on their spouse, right, if they reach out for help, for different things, right, because, that's, their loved one, right, and they don't want to, place any type of shame or any type of, stigma or anything, on their loved one, right? That's going through those things. So I think that, again, I'm assuming here, but I would think that would hinder some of them from reaching out, for some of the help, and I think that, if we can work on the, it's really, I'd look at it, right, as any other type of damage, right? And I don't mean damage in a bad way, right? Or let's scratch damage, let's say injury, right? So if I'm out somewhere and I cut myself with a kitchen knife, right? And I don't bandage it, right? I just let it fester, right? It's gonna get worse, right? And it's gonna just keep developing, right? But if I mend it, right, and I bandage it and I give it the proper care that it needs, right, I'm still gonna have a scar, right? I'm still gonna have a scar there, right? And if when I see that scar, I'm gonna remember, hey, I cut myself with a kitchen knife, or whatever thing caused that physical scar, right? I think if we can kind of turn the dynamic on, it's an injury just like any other injury, right? And we can treat that injury, right? But it doesn't mean that the scar's not going to still be there, right? It doesn't mean that the scar isn't going to be tender, right? But if we manage that scar and we treat that scar, right, we can heal it, right? It doesn't mean that the scar is going to go away, right? It just means that the scar is still there. And I think if we can change the dynamic to, rather than treating it as a mental illness or a mental whatever, it's an injury, right? Whether that's PTSD, whether that's some type of domestic
Anxiety.
violence, whether it's anxiety, whatever it is, that's an injury, right? And it was something caused that, right? Just like the kitchen knife caused the cut on my finger, right? And if we can change the conversation to looking at that and seeing that as an injury, right? That needs to be addressed, right? That needs the proper, care and, treatment that any other injury would. Then I think that would, move forward and maybe get the stigma away to it being a weakness, right? And just looking at it as an injury, like you twisted your ankle, right? And some things are small, right? Some things are large, right? A large injury is going to cause, you're going to need more treatment, right? You're going to need more help. You're going to need different things, right? And I think that's, if that can be related, right, to a mental or emotional injury.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, your brain is injured, and
Right.
it rewires itself to either forget it or to function, or, I mean, for even today, there are times where I act inappropriate for a situation.
I've never done that in my life.
Chris, I act inappropriate all the time, so I know what you're talking about.
No, somebody would give me a gift or whatnot, and I'm just sitting there going, oh, and it's what I wanted. It was like the greatest thing. Yes. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, all right. and it's because, you know, there was a point in my time or my life where I lacked emotion. It was just gone, right? And it was the fighting and everything else. It's just, I had one emotion, anger.
You were desensitized to a lot of things. Too.
Yeah. And so when I learned that my brain had rewired itself, and then I have to work on learning how to function with that difference in my brain, that's what counseling does. That's what groups do. That's what talking does. That talking makes it where it's not a stigma. Sorry, I'm looking at you and talking. PTSD is a stigma, right? And the more we talk about it, the more we get, as a society, get comfortable with it. Suicide is a stigma, and we keep saying, or we have this mentality that it's a 4-letter word that we shouldn't say because we may convince somebody to commit suicide just by saying it in front of an individual. No, it's not that. You say suicide, you say these taboo words, oh, they're aware of it. Oh, maybe they're, feeling the same way I am, and that's why it's on their mind. A friend of mine that I met in college, his name was Clay Hunt, and he was a scout sniper in the Marine Corps, his second enlistment. And when he got out, his life kind of was difficult. And he was putting it back together, his one piece at a time. He was living in Houston. And one day, a friend of mine, a mutual friend of mine, calls me up and says, Clay killed himself. And it didn't register. And it didn't, I'm like, what? Are you effing with me? What? And he's just bawling his eyes out on the other side of the line. And I got to go. And I hung up on him. And it took the longest time to realize that, what did I miss? And I wasn't open with my PTSD at the time. It was like, maybe if we shared, we talked about it, we made it normal. And then we're cynical, in our sense. He would have been more comfortable and he'd still be here. So make it normal. Ooh, there's a saying, make it weird, right? Have that awkward conversation, because that may save someone's life. Yep. And that's where River City and the things that they do, it's not just talking. If you want to go over there and you want to express how you feel in art, they got it, right? If you just want to go over there and sit in a place where it's your safe place. I don't know if you have one, but I have two. It's a restaurant here in town because they treat Maggie like she's royalty, and they know I want to sit in the corner, right? And church. I lost faith in the military and out of it. I've come back to the church, and that's my other safe place, right? Because I know they got me, and there's multiple ways out. But
well, I think that kind of goes into. So I think for me, and probably for a lot of guys, right, is working through things and processing things, right? It doesn't have to be, a sit down where you lay down on the couch and somebody's sitting there, you crack a joke and they're like, oh, well, that's something we need to talk about, right? So it's not, I don't think that it's necessarily has to be, necessarily one-on-one, you sitting, counselor sitting there on that side of the table and you sitting here, feeling uncomfortable. I think a lot of it is community, right? And being with people that are gonna listen, right? And they're not gonna judge you. And that's something great that I can say about when I went to Warrior's Heart. Their motto is Warriors Healing Warriors, right? And so, and with it being an inpatient, right, you're there and it's, 40, 50 guys. And so you're not always in a session, right? And so there's times where you're just sitting around just talking, right? And just sharing stories. And, yeah, you weren't there for my story, but you can relate to my story, right? In some way.
That's important.
Right? And so it's not, and like you're saying, right? It's Shakespeare is a restaurant where you feel accepted, right? So that's not you sitting down for a therapy session, right? That's somewhere where, you feel a sense of community and you feel a sense of belonging, right? And so it's not only, sitting down, yeah, there's some things that you need to sit down, right? And you need to dive deep into, right? To work through those things. But I think the bigger piece of that is the sense of belonging and community that you find in different places, right? And whatever that is, right? If you're into, shooting, right? I know a lot of guys that do shooting stuff. I know a lot of guys that are into fishing, right? Into, remote control stuff, into drone stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Or into whatever that little niche weird thing is that you dig, right? I promise you there's another bunch of weird dudes or gals, right, that dig that thing just as much as you do, and you can sit around and, nerd out on Pokemon or, drones, because I have a buddy, a really great buddy of mine, super into drones. He's got like 100 of them.
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, he's like crazy, And this dude is, when I served with him, this guy is harder than $9 worth of Jolly Ranchers. I mean, this dude is freaking tough, right? But that's just one of his things, right? That he like nerds out on and gets all into. And I'm like, and that's part of, right, the healing, not, because a lot of things, it's not just healing that scar, right? It's healing your soul, right? Because that's really what that is that's some soul damage on whether that's PTSD, whether that's some domestic violence stuff, whether that's, childhood abuse, whatever that is, right? That's a scar to your soul, right? And doing those things that bring joy to your life, whatever that thing is, right? It doesn't have to be sitting in an office, or in a, sitting in front of a counselor, right? It's getting the hell out of your house, right? Open up the blinds,
Bathe
right?
first,
Let some sunlight in, right? And find out whatever that thing is, right? And for all of us, that thing is going to be a little different, right? But then I promise you, there's somebody who digs that thing just as much as you do, right? And they may not necessarily have your veteran experience or your domestic violence experience, whatever that soul trauma is, right? You still get that sense of belonging and getting out and letting your soul thrive and finding joy in those things.
You got to be deliberate in trying to find these resources and things. But some of the resources will come to you as well with word of mouth. You guys can add something else to your bios, advocates and resources for vets. You guys are definitely advocates and resources because you've been there, done that, and you got the T-shirt for it.
Right.
But yeah.
And I think something that's awesome
dad
about
tax, yeah.
River City Advocacy, they are so involved in the community, and you go in there and if you tell Amanda or Rachel, I really like doing remote control race cars, and they're like, oh, there's this group that meets every Thursday and does whatever, right? So they're so connected in the community here.
And it's even if you don't need mental health services, you're gonna be so in tune with Rachel and Amanda and their legacy that they have that you're gonna want to be a part of it. And you're gonna say, man, they're a resource of joy and prosperity because they're not only mental health, they're everything. I mean, if they live music and anybody, small business owners. So they are at River City Advocacy is big resources for everybody. So yeah, gentlemen, you guys have hit the nail on the head on so many things. I had some questions here. I think you guys, we went on everything, and we went above and beyond in telling your story. I mean, just the personal testimony that you guys have given is incredible. And it is, I'm glad we have it all recorded and on this podcast so we can help others. And you're a huge reason why our River City Advocacy and the Warrior Foundation that you went through
Yeah, Warrior's Heart.
are a big reason why you guys are alive today, because we talked about suicide. Who knows what would happen if you hadn't got these resources or made a deliberate stand to say, you know what, enough's enough. I need to go talk to somebody.
I had suicide ideology, or did I say that right?
Ideations.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Suicide ideations 3 times. And it's, for me, it was my children. Not that was causing. They are the reason I'm still alive. I had to find something because I wasn't worthy anymore, because I'm not at that level of performance.
Yeah.
So I'm not worthy to be the person that I once was. But now my girls are here, and I want to be the dad. I want to be the man that I want them to bring home. And that wasn't it. So that's why I better myself, not for myself. Once again, I'm doing it for somebody else. I want to be a better person for my daughters, and that's what drives me.
But having the courage to talk to somebody was the key to your success today.
Absolutely.
The key to victory.
Absolutely.
It is not, you aren't damaged. You are, it is a reaction to an event or something that you saw. And it's not just one. It can be multiple. It can be small events that happen and it doesn't happen right after it. There are people with PTSD that get into a situation here that happened over there. We're talking Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Bosnia. And it's so similar that it triggers that, and then they hit rock bottom and they're different. It completely changed. And it may be 20, 30 years down the road. It just, whatever triggers those thoughts or those feelings, and it changes your life. Because it's an event that happened to you, and it's your body's reaction to it.
There are different events that go on in our lives, and there is a big event coming up on September 14th.
Yes, I'm super excited about that. First, I want to say thank you so much to everybody coming on today, being vulnerable and transparent, and talking about mental health with our veterans specifically. But most importantly, thank you, all 3 of you, for your service.
Thank you.
it's,
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, yeah.
It means a
Thank
lot
you.
to us.
And so our event, September 14th, is, again, it's going to be targeting our veteran population and raising money and fundraising for veteran support with River City Advocacy and Counseling, because there's only one way we can afford to continue those services, and that's to fundraise. And so this event is kicking off our Big Give Week, and it's going to have a lot of fun things involved with it. It's going to be September 14th, which is a Saturday, Silos of Freiheit. It's over there behind Creekside, kind of over 1101 area, if you're not familiar.
There's
But
double
definitely-
shots there, and there's Las
Double
Fontanas.
Shots, Lone Star. We have a lot of different sponsors that we're very grateful for too. So we hope that you're going to come out and support our veterans. There's going to be a dunk tank. There's going to be a brig. There's going to be a lot of different things going on.
So Amanda, are you going to be in the dunk tank?
Rachel
Say
is
yes, say
going to
yes.
probably make me be in the dunk tank. She's going to be in the brig. I'll do the dunk tank, and the lines are going to be really long for both.
So a brig is a jail cell, right? And we want to get Rachel in that jail cell, and we got to bail her out somehow. Someone's got to bail you out.
I hope so.
Hopefully somebody will, and for your sake.
Yeah.
So are we setting a fundraising limit to get you out? Like, if we have to raise so many dollars?
Yes. Yeah.
So like we talked about this before, and I think somebody should be able to counter offer, right? So
Yes.
To make it go lower?
well, no, to counteract
Stay.
to counteract anybody's deposit. So I will match
to keep her in.
to
Okay.
keep her in.
okay.
To keep her in. I will
Okay.
match up to a certain dollar amount for every donation that pays to get her out. I will pay that to get the mount back to 0.
Apparently, Jeremy does not trust me to be in the community. I don't know. Have you gone out with me before?
Get that Hannibal Lecter
Yeah,
mask
yeah.
on.
I'm never getting out of anywhere.
Clarice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to
I
say.
just think it's double the fundraising.
Well, thank you. And thank you again for your service and for your commitment to keeping me contained.
Yes.
Well, somebody needs to commit to that.
You know, I've got to say, and Amanda can attest to this, I don't cry. And it's been a long time since I've cried.
Occasionally you've leaked out of that.
Maybe. I don't recall
Allergies.
when that could have, yes.
That's
it
the
was
humidity.
Absolutely allergies. But today I've had 2 grown men who have caused me to cry a little bit, bring me to tears. And it's not tears of frustration, it's tears of empathy and a desire to understand. And you sharing your stories today is just brought even more commitment to who we are and what we do and our mission to serve anybody who has served our country. And I hope that others that hear your story feel the same way and are compelled to support our mission and our goals. And I just want to say thank you so much for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. It has definitely had a huge impact on me in ways that I can't even describe. So thank you for sharing and for helping so many people in our community today.
And thank you, J-Rock, for not putting the camera on us when we were leaking out of our eyes.
Well, I mean, it's. I'm glad that, I hope that, it helps reach, veterans in the community that may be struggling, because I know, at least for me, it's not something I share very often.
Yeah.
Again, the
How
whole
do you work
stigma.
that into a conversation?
Even, again, the stigma with the dog, right? So it's not something that I typically, it's not my opener, But so, thank you very much for that. And, I hope that the podcast today can, reach out to some of the people who may be on, hovering back and forth on whether they need to reach out or not.
Yeah.
And,
Us too.
hopefully that'll, have them reach out to, find some resources that are available to them.
Thank you.
Reach out. It's not just River City. It's not the VA. It's not those things. Reach out to someone. And I'm sure there are individuals that have heard it. Suicide and reactions to PTSD, depression, anxiety, and all those things. Suicide is a very long-term solution to something that can be a short-term problem. And the pain you're feeling, in some cases, people project that out by acting out and what have you. Me, it was fighting people, always trying to find somebody to fight. That's the pain you feel inside being transferred to the people you love, and they carry it for the rest of their lives. So talk to someone, anybody, a loved one, a perfect stranger, if that's what it takes to save your life. For us to lose another brother or sister, and it's not just combat PTSD, there are sexual traumas that unfortunately females endure, and some men. It's not, combat isn't the only way to get PTSD. River City Advocacy Center helps a plethora of people. It's just we're talking about veterans today because we want you to be alive. We want you to be able, if we're ever called up again, to be on that line and be ready to do it because we know you will.
Spot on, my friend. Chris Willis, you're an inspiration, sir.
Can you tell my kids that?
Yeah. Jeremy Baggett, you are the man, and you're also an inspiration.
Thank you.
You both are our heroes, and we're thankful that you're alive today to give your personal testimony. And once again, I just want to foot stomp at Silos of Fry House at September 14th from 4 to 10 p.m. Big event, and all proceeds are to help River City Advocacy give back to the veteran community with mental health resources and support. So you guys are doing it right. You're doing it big. Thank you for what you guys do. You guys have an instrumental piece in our community, and you guys are leaders as well. Just keep doing it. Keep emphasizing the importance. Keep meeting people like these. These guys are the connections that we that we make with these people, like heroes like this. And our premise is ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You guys are all ordinary. We're all ordinary here. We're basic people. But when we put our minds to it, we do extraordinary things.
Absolutely.
When we put our minds to helping people, we soar above all expectations. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
So where can we find you, Rachel and Amanda?
RiverCityAdvocacy.org is our website. Has all of our services on there. If you ever need counseling help or assistance, there's an application on the website. We have a Facebook page that usually has our events. It also has details about our peer support groups that are open to the community, and our art room, which is our therapeutic art room, which is a great way to come and release some stress and feel in a safe place. And we provide everything for you to come and do that. So we are on the west side of New Braunfels at 1614 West San Antonio Street. If you need anything, you can message our Facebook, or you can come by and take a tour, and we'd love to have you.
I love it. Thank you, ladies, for being on. Gentlemen, you're stellar.
I appreciate it.
So with that said, you are unplugged from the Social Plug podcast, where we connect you to level up. We'll talk to you soon.